Hello, Parallel Perception community. I'm Angel Samadi, and I'm honored to have won this year's 2023 scholarship to learn Lo Ban Pai Gravity Series in Sedona, Arizona this year. So, as a result, I have questions, and I have Mr. Lujan Matus here with me to answer them. So that I know what to expect. So, let's start with the mindset. What kind of mindset should one be in to get the most out of an in-person training with you?
To try and drop every single expectation of what can be envisioned towards imagination, because when you get into the office with me, it's a totally different affair, because we'll look at where consciousness really is in comparison to examining consciousness which hasn't been sort of afforded enough time to grow inside of you. So it's so being in the office it's a sacred space. It's basically very, very sealed, and everything that every micro gesture, everything that's held, I'll bring it to the surface for examination and speed up the internal process. So usually you've got a span of, say, 10 or 15 years where you're evolving, you learn certain things. So what I try and do is compress a 10-year period in a week, so that people have a very, very fast track to the evolutionary process of switching everything off that they've socially engineered, that's been socially engineered within the body, dislocate this, and then introduce everybody to a state of emptiness, which then unravels all the insecurities, all the hidden elements within the body. I go for this and look at this very, very carefully, very, very lovingly, and then the prospect of silencing people's internal system via the fact that they're with me, because I switch myself off completely, and everybody goes into an alternate brainwave pattern, which they're very, very unfamiliar with. So then the room will change from a very, very clear room to a room that seems like you're half asleep, and you're in you see the photons in front of your eyes. Everything becomes sepia. So when this occurs, then I can very, 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 very diligently track all the elements which are habituated, and then get a disconnection to those habituated points of reference in terms of what people truly expect, which have been engineered to expect the wrong thing, and then to retract back into a formless mind that does not have thinking process. It has a feeling. Elevation of feeling, which you jump upon this and speak the content of this instead of the content of expectation, because the content of your process of your heart becoming voluminous shows you things that you missed. So I track into that very, very carefully, and then I'll ask my students not to socialize. I'll give them the power of emptiness. They read this, study this, put it inside of your body, or get the audible version of it, and then listen to this and fully study, being with me. Don't go off tracking into the hills or doing courses. Stay with the process, because what I'm going to do is undo every element, so that if you don't put yourself back together by being in a socially engineered situation where people expect you to respond and speak in a way which is coherent for them in terms of what they're leading you towards. I want to lead you towards emptiness, and to the surprise of that particular emptiness. And also there are mechanisms inside of the body that if you are not switched off, these won't switch on. So these are very, very important. Yeah. And the way these lines move inside of your body are quite unique and very, very beautiful. And people, they end up joyous, crying, grateful, shifted to such a degree that they don't really understand how they got shifted so dramatically. So it's a joy for me to see this type of growth in such a short period of time. Yeah,
which is excellent. And we're going to hear from a couple of the students that have already gone through the Gravity series at the end of this. What prior knowledge do students need, prospective students? Are there certain books they should have read before they come to see you in person? What do we need?
The power of emptiness is actually the top of the pinnacle in terms of everything that I've written. But the power of emptiness is to give people a true look inside of my heart, because those are all real experiences, but they've been put into India with a Mango Grove master, but it teaches all the principles of how to withhold, how to grow within that withholding, but not to be restrictive, but to be open. It's all very, very contradictory. Everything in the internal world is not counterproductive, is counterintuitive. So when you realize that the intuitive process is a regulated thought form and feeling based tuition, which isn't tuition at all, it's just something which is manifested out of what you expect. And when you get what you don't expect, then you begin to realize what the intuitive awareness is all about. Yeah.
Okay. Now, I know you recommend, since this is a movement system, that you recommend everyone to see their doctor before they engage in any exercise program.
Yes.
For their own safety. But what do I tell my doctor? What do I tell them I'm getting engaged in, so that I know I've got permission?
Well, you're basically just going to be doing very, very soft movements. Let's say that awakening the energy body and windlock are the most extreme in terms of how they affect your body. But windlock is to activate the spring systems inside of your system, so you stay elastic. So there's as long as you don't have sore knees, as long as you don't have a bad back, it's really fine. It's so gentle, but very, very strong. Very, very strong. And also, when I get people into the room, I teach them, or I make them aware that there are enormous possibilities in between us, because I can put someone around 15 feet away from me and hit their hands, and they get a real shock. How did I reach to touch their palms of their hands within the same rhythmic manner that I'm moving, which opens up their perception in terms of how intelligent their body is. I begin to open these doorways within the physical form. Yeah. Okay. But it's a beautiful system. It's very, very loving and very, very open.
So it's not like a high impact joint jarring. It's all good.
No.
Okay. No. Okay. So those with bad knees, no,
you'll be fine.
You'll
be fine. Yes. Even if there's somebody that has, if anyone's got a severe injury, just sit them on the chair and go through the movements and open the joints.
Oh, okay.
But there's I've not yet had anyone that I needed to do that with.
Okay, but it can be modified now. That's good.
It can be modified, yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, and one sec, I got more questions. Oh, what should we wear?
Okay, well, I've got a uniform on here. I can give you a link to wear a uniform, but what I would say, don't wear perfumes, don't wear fragrances, watch out with the soaps you're using, because I'm very, very sensitive. And also too, when you come into an enclosed space, these spread into the room, and they're virtual poisons. So what I ask everybody to wear is just natural cotton clothing, no fragrances. They can wear essential oils, but they've got to make sure those essential oils haven't got a fragrant base to it, because that gets into the physical system and then blooms into the atmosphere, and you breathe this in. So it's got to be as clean as possible. I have 2 frequency machines in the room that block any sort of Wi-Fi coming in. So I ask people not to bring their phones because of the interactivity of our body with Bluetooth and with Wi-Fi signals, which are damaging to the system. So it's basically, don't bring your phone in. Wear cotton clothing so they can breathe. Don't wear clothing that has plastic in it, because there's going to be a form of osmosis with any form of non-natural fabric, which is going to interact with your body. So when you do Lo Ban Pai, everything opens up. Your heart opens up, your breathing opens up, your pores open up. So you've got to make sure that the environment is clean as possible, so you don't breathe back in toxins when you're opening up. And also the frequency that you become subject to when you're with me is opposite to what you get from your phone, opposite to what you get to the internet. So I keep all those out of the room, so that there's no ulterior frequencies within the room, so everyone can settle into their original framework, or the framework which is naturally theirs to become their most beautiful, loving self. So. There you go.
Is there anything else that we should bring, like a cushion, a yoga mat, or any other?
No. I got very, very comfortable couch you can sit on, and and we go through the movements. I have a very unique way of teaching you. You go through the movements. I sit you down. I say, forget everything we've done, and then we get up and do it again. And I get everyone to go through their notes and then repeat the notes so they can formalize themselves from an intellectual perspective in the beginning, because that's the only way to assume responsibility for what you've got, is to intellectually categorize it within your framework of your memory, and then as you become more adapt to the exercises, you'll naturally start to do them. Your body will take over and you'll switch your mind off, so that the aspect of your mind can sink into your body, and then you can use this kind of listening ability that we have with our ears, eyes, and feeling inside of the body to actually map the internal terrain, which hasn't been mapped before, without any emotional responses, any sort of biases or anything like that. So I ask everybody to let everything go and forgive everybody that's anything that's ever been done to them, so that they can start anew.
Okay, so something to take notes with, or hopefully someone will get like a journal for the whole experience. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I supply the
Power of Emptiness
and a book to journal in to take
good.
notes. Yeah. So that's all preemptively put there, and then given notes for the form like gravity or opening the door or waking the energy body or windlock. They have the preliminary sets have all been standardized, and we just go from there.
Okay, yeah, so folder. I'm getting the details. We don't even need a folder. No pens.
No. Get a pen, everything like this, and then because you don't have to bring into the room, you take that with you, and then you can go over your notes and then go over the book, and then diligently try, even if you're only with me 1 week, is diligently try not to be engaged with anyone, not to make eye contact, or not to be re-socialized, because what I'm doing is undoing the socialized process to open up their natural ability of no matter how old the person is, to go back to their original state of reception, their open-heartedness. And it's a very, very safe space to do this.
Yeah. Okay, it sounds like it. So to be able to just go within without the external distractions and be able to spend that time within. So
and also they will realize when they're inside the room, when they go outside the room, it's absolutely glaring. When you're inside the room, it's like a cocoon. When you go outside, you actually feel vulnerable. The world you were in contact with, you really realize how vulnerable you are in that world. When you come into the room, there's a safety, and this safety net is something that I think everybody's got to learn to create in their own home. So their body's their temple, their home is their temple. When they come into the office is exactly the same thing I've done with my own home. And when people come into my own home, even the owners that own this, they came in and they said, "Oh, what have you done? This feels beautiful." And they said, "Well, we're selling it, and we want to, get it all ready." And I said, "I'll get it all ready for you," and I got it all ready for them. And they said, "We'd like these people to buy it." And I said, "Okay, these people will buy it," and that's exactly what happened. Excellent. And then we could stay here for an extra 2 years.
Okay. Now I understand for the small group, you limit that to 4 people. Is that correct?
Yes.
And what's the next format? Is there ever a larger group than that?
Yeah. I usually do big workshops. Now the COVID's over and everything like that, we'll start back with workshops. Online is usually online spiritual guidance. Teaching online is like I like to have my finger on the pulse, and one sitting in say gravity. I'd say gravity, if somebody's done it online, they should do it at least 4 or 5 times, because the nuances are very, very difficult to get to unless you become repetitively connected to it. And it's much cheaper to do it online than it is to come and see me. But when you come and see me, there is so much information that you'll get in terms of reinforcement, because you'll be with me. But I can't watch somebody that's with me for an online course, and then I see them another week later, and like this. And it's not as expensive. So I'd say you have to repeat those a couple of times to actually even start to comprehend what you're meant to do, because you haven't been with me physically. And being with me physically, I exude a certain amount of magnetism and stillness inside of my body that I can transmit without the interference of maybe 20 or 30 minds, on an online course coming in on it. And that's and believe it or not, there's a lot of expansion that comes from different types of consciousness on the online process. So, and I can't, and it's very hard for me to capture what's really going on. And as far as I'm concerned, when you come and see me personally, in comparison to being online, I can't really track in on what's really going on to speed up your internal process, or the biases, or the leverages within the mind and within the emotional process, which needs to be dropped, because you need to be empty of everything to assume to actually understand something you've never entered into before, because you've got to let go of what was to become your original basic self, which was lost in childhood. Yeah. So you put that in an adult framework with enormous amounts of power and knowing, with the tenderness of an open heart. This is the way we're meant to be.
Okay. Yeah. So we're going to be prepared for that mindset again, just to kind of go within. And yes. Is any of the training outdoors? Because Arizona heat scares me.
No. I would say be contained. Be contained. Inside a cocoon of a room, because if you're outside, you can be influenced by the external environment. There's mosquitoes, fleas, everything like this, or ticks and all this sort of jazz. And to be contained from the ground, people would really say, well, I need to be connected to the ground. No, you don't share your energy with the ground until your body becomes full. So having rubber soles is fine. Being inside of a room is fine. Just make sure you don't have any toxic materials in the room, or you burn candles that have got lead or fragrances in them. You've got to be very, very careful what you ingest from the capacity of breathing, to make sure that you don't take in something as you're doing your work. Everything will be coming out of you. Everything will be releasing from you. Like I had somebody last week that came for healing, and it's a week-long process. And what was coming out of her was basically it smelled like mothballs. And she couldn't smell it until the third day. She said, I'm not having any contact with mothballs. I said, yes, you have. I can smell them really strongly. And the third day she smelled it. And so whatever toxin was inside comes out. And then as long as you don't have fragrances on, you don't refill yourself with something that shouldn't be there. And that's what Lo Ban Pai does. It pushes all the toxins out and renews your system.
Okay. Well, tell me what a typical day looks like. How would the ideal student, set up the day from morning to evening to get the most of it?
Well, whatever before they come, I just say, well, when you come, I give a certain amount of information. Then they have to go home and say, give a little bit of attention to what you've learned, so it goes in repetitively, so that you can formalize those particular movements, or take responsibility for them by just repetitively going over them, and to drop them, and an hour later do it again, and be totally devoted to this process. So when you come back into the room, we repeat, and then the nuances can be amplified in terms of where you're really meant to be and what you're really meant to do. So it's a matter of just going over, not being very, very dogmatically very specific. I like people to make mistakes, because when they make mistakes, I can correct them, and the mistakes are the most important things. Most important thing, you can't do something perfectly straight away. And even if you do it perfectly, maybe 2 years later come back and do it again, just to have a look to see whether you've wandered away from the original framework. And a lot of people say to me, well, I want to be spontaneous. I said, no, don't do that. Stay in the framework. And then spontaneity, some other type of spontaneity will come to the surface. So spontaneity, if you go, I'm going to be spontaneous, then the regiment of your expectations comes into that spontaneity, instead of emptiness invading the system, and eliminating the process of expectation to be open to something that is unexpected. Okay. I'm rambling. Okay.
No, that's okay. And if we, now let's get, well, let me breathe. There seem to be significant differences between the in-person training and the online training. So I'm understanding that with the in-person training, you're going to be able to, it's a smaller group. You don't have the contaminants from so many minds, so that you can better focus on the people, correct their form, etc. Now with the online, they're going to get the benefit of learning the forms, but not necessarily the personalized attention, because you can't give that to them, and however many screens are there. So but it won't be full immersion. So definitely highly recommended in person if at all possible.
Yeah, we're coming into a big, what do you call it? What's it called? Oh, I can't remember what it's called. When people come into a big group, they come and see me in a big group. It's very beneficial like this. But I was very hesitant to go online because there are certain things you can't teach. There's certain things you can't draw out of, even in a big group. I've noticed some people, they come and see me, then I start to unravel the things that weren't quite obvious because they're guarding themselves in a big group. And as they're guarding themselves, they're socially hidden behind all the barriers of what they want to present as themselves. Where I want them to undo all this, so that they can come to terms with who they're really meant to be. And this is very obscure. And plus, I will assume to take a certain amount of deranged energetics from their body and then dispel that in the middle of the night. This is one thing that I do that a lot of people don't really understand how I do it, or why I do it, or why it happens, and that's a big subject.
Yes, that is, because we always get deranged energy. Let's say that everyone is going to focus, and we need to plan a trip to come see you. Where's the nearest airport? Because Sedona is not necessarily on the flight path.
Okay, now
we're Phoenix or
Angel. This is difficult because I don't manage this, Miss Vidal. So
okay, no worries.
Yeah, because
I know that it's either Phoenix or I think. Well, let's say it's Phoenix. Phoenix is going to be like a 2-hour drive away. So you'll need to rent a car, and we'll need to get up there for you. So
that's right. Yeah.
Is anything provided in terms of meals for the day?
No, everybody.
So they pack their lunch,
has their own meals.
Go back home?
No, they go back home. They go back home, have their meals. There's no eating in the office or anything like that. So everything, like you eat before you come, you eat after you leave. You consume water in the office. Sometimes I provide chocolates just in case someone proper chocolates without, very healthy, so that if you're crashing, at least you get a little bit of a boost. As far as all the traveling arrangement, Mispa does that because she knows my character. My character is I want to be away from everything, and I don't do banking. I don't do anything. I do my job. This is all I do. But she does everything else. So when you ask me that question, there's a big void.
Okay.
Oh my God, I can't answer that question because she
so
operationally does all that sort of thing. Yeah.
Okay. And so, but otherwise, people could just look at an Airbnb or hotels in the area and.
Miss, if they communicate with Miss can say, well, if there's 4 people coming, then maybe we'll look for an Airbnb where everyone can stay in the same place, or so she does organize all this. She helps everybody, so they're not abandoning this. She's very capable in terms of saying when and where and giving reference to Airbnbs, but I'm not involved in that because, as you know, I'm spending 6.5 hours in the morning and then think I've got to do certain things. So she's operationally in this area because she can work that way. I can't work that way because I'm geared in another form of intelligence.
No worries. So we can bring our own water. And is there
I provide water.
You got water, okay?
Yeah, we got water, and it's in crystals and everything like this. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Is there a recommended diet that you think would help facilitate? Should someone fast before they come, or?
Oh no.
Okay.
No, they should feed themselves in a similar fashion. They don't want to crash. Okay. So it's so if you're young and you're okay and you can do juicing and things like this, but you've got to be aware that you're going to start using your organ energy if you change your diet and everything like that, because you'll have a shift over from one type of eating to another type of eating. So it's it doesn't really matter what you eat. It matters your attitude, and then you've got to watch what happens to your body as you get older to modify what your intake is in terms of how you've been trained. So it's kind of dangerous to say everybody go like this, bang, change. You've got to change very, very slowly. Otherwise,
so we don't want to have any major changes at that point because our body's attention will be shifted to the new form of digestion.
Yeah, but also too, when they're with me, they'll be subject to enormous amount of a field of energy which they're not used to. This is overwhelming as well, because once they come into the room, there's a field of there's a containment field which they're not going to be used to, and this is a really, really big shock to the system. And then when they become comfortable with this, then they've got a comparison to an electromagnetic field which is voluminous in comparison to a world which is kind of empty and just speaks about it instead of becoming truly aware of it. Yeah.
Okay. Now,
Yeah.
so then I'm ready for the class. I come, I have an absolutely wonderful time. What are your recommendations for after the training, for post-training schedule of exercises? What will we walk away with, and what should we be doing next in our
Well,
practice?
you go home and keep practicing and keep searching, keep looking for the elements that I've shown you, where to assign your attention, how to assign your consciousness inside of your body to make sure you understand every transition within the movements. And I will go through this, and you examine this, so it's an internal journey. So you still do what you've got to do, and if you come to do another form, the similar principles are put in, so when you learn the next form, you can build on what you learned before, and it expands until you get to a high level. And this will take a few years to do. I say do one form and then give it a break and do another form, and then assume another type of awareness that you build with the framework of your body, so you can move into that. So it all comes down to, I can't really see what you're doing when you're not around me. When you come back, I can identify and reinforce what I taught you before and put it into another framework. Once you've got another framework, then you've got a different reference point. And as you go through your movements, you begin to realize that you're growing. Yeah, but growth doesn't happen like this. It happens incrementally. So I would say to be the most important thing is to do the movements, and then get back to your original state of who you really were before you lost your way. And this is something we concentrate on very, very strongly, to be your sweet, loving self, and to be in the framework of your own integrity. Don't blame or shame or injure anybody else, and don't ever injure yourself. So it's quite a journey. The week will seem like years, I can guarantee you.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, last question. Starting out, how much time should I budget in the morning for these exercises if I'm going to be on it as a diligent student and want to progress? How much time should I set aside for these exercises?
Okay, if you're going to do gravity, and you do gravity in the way that I show you, that it can take 10 to 15 minutes to 20 minutes. Now, this is not very much, but the amount of stillness and the amount of discipline that you have to do to open your joints and to flow through all the movements, and to realize that you're looking for the secrets being revealed to you, and then you'll consciously be aware that you discovered something, and as soon as you let go, your body reassumes its normal positioning, and this sort of impacts and gives you a certain amount of information which comes upon you slowly, not quickly. Because you can never rush towards something which takes an enormous amount of time. It's like when we get to a certain age, we didn't rush to become 50, but when we're 50, we look back, we realize how much experience that we've absorbed by the fact that we started here and got there. And then when you speak to someone who's 20, when you're 50, you realize where they are because you've already been through it. Or you get to 50 and you don't know what's going on because you haven't looked at anything. So.
Okay. Okay, this is all wonderful. Thank you so much. I just wanted to get an idea and share with everybody what they need to expect before coming to see you in person. So thank you, Lujan. I'm looking forward to coming and meeting everyone. So thank you for this time.
Yeah, thank you so much, somebody.
Bye.
Angel somebody.